Dr. Alina Martinez rubbed her tired eyes and stared at the computer screen again. She had been working for 12 hours straight at the Titan research station, listening to radio signals from deep space. Most of the time, she heard nothing but static and the background noise of dying stars. But tonight was different. The signal came from somewhere far beyond the edge of known space. It was weak, broken, and filled with desperation. Alina adjusted her equipment and played the message again. Strange voices spoke in a language she had never heard before. But the universal translator was working on it, slowly turning alien words into English. Please, ... Anyone who can hear this, ... We are dying. Alina sat up straight. This was not a normal radio signal. This was a cry for help from another world. The voice continued, and Alina could hear the fear in it even through the translation. We are the Kethver Collective. Our worlds are burning. The Zephyrian Horde has come to destroy us. We have no weapons that can stop them. We need help from the wise races of the galaxy. Images began to appear on Alina's screen. The aliens had somehow included video with their message. She watched in horror as beautiful cities burned under attack from massive black ships. Strange creatures that looked like a mix between deer and insects ran through the streets, carrying their young away from the destruction. We are a peaceful people, the voice said. We have never known war. We study the stars and create art and music. But these monsters care nothing for beauty or knowledge. They only want to consume our worlds. Alina watched as giant bug-like creatures with 4 arms and sharp teeth chased the peaceful aliens through burning buildings. The Kethver moved like deer, quick and graceful, but they had no weapons. They could only run. Their elder. Races out there, beings of wisdom and advanced science, please help us. We do not ask for war. We ask for guidance. Perhaps you know of ways to make peace with these creatures. Perhaps your technology can protect our children. The message showed more terrible scenes. Entire cities turned to ash. Forests burning. The beautiful Kethver, trying to hide their young in caves while the monster ships searched for them from above. This message will repeat for as long as our transmitters survive. We send it to all parts of the galaxy, hoping someone will hear. We are not warriors. We do not know how to fight. But maybe someone out there does, and maybe they will take pity on us. Alina felt sick as she watched the final images. Kethver parent holding 2 small children while fire rained from the sky. The parent looked directly at the camera, with large, gentle eyes that reminded Alina of a deer she had once saved as a child. She immediately called her supervisor. Dr. Phillips, you need to see this. We just received a distress signal from an alien civilization. They're being attacked and they need help. Dr. Phillips arrived within minutes. He watched the message 3 times without saying a word. Finally, he looked at Alina with a serious expression. How long ago was this sent? The signal delay suggests it was transmitted about 6 months ago, Alina replied. By now, these people might already be dead. Maybe, or maybe they're still fighting. Either way, we need to contact Earth Command immediately. This is the first proof we've ever had of intelligent alien life, and they're in trouble. Within an hour, the message was being reviewed by the highest levels of human government. In military, Alina waited in the communications center, listening to generals and admirals discuss what to do. The aliens seem to think we're some kind of advanced peaceful race, said General Patricia Hayes. They're asking for wisdom and guidance, not military support. They don't know what they're asking for, replied Admiral Charles King. They have no idea what kind of species they just contacted. Alina listened as the military leaders discussed Earth's response. She began to understand something that made her feel both proud and worried. The Kethver had sent their message hoping to find wise, peaceful aliens who could teach them how to solve their problem without violence. Instead, their message had reached humanity. Humans were not a peaceful species. Earth was what scientists called a Class 12 death world, a planet. So dangerous that almost everything on it had evolved to kill something else. Humans had survived by becoming the most successful predators their world had ever produced. They had spent thousands of years perfecting the art of war, fighting each other until they finally learned to work together. We could ignore this message, suggested Dr. Phillips. These aliens are probably already dead. Even if they're not, their conflict is thousands of light years away. It's not our problem. Commander Jake Sullivan, who had been listening quietly, finally spoke up. With respect, sir, I disagree. These people sent out a cry for help to anyone who could hear it. We heard it. That makes it our responsibility. Commander Sullivan, you don't understand, said General Hayes. These aliens are expecting wise counselors and advanced scientists. They want someone to teach them peaceful solutions. Look at their message again. They think there are elder races out there who have moved beyond war. Sullivan nodded. You're right, General. They are expecting peaceful elders. Instead, they're going to get us. But maybe that's exactly what they need right now. Alina watched as Sullivan pulled up Earth's military files on his computer. Ships that could destroy planets. Weapons that could turn continents to glass. Soldiers trained from birth to survive in conditions that would kill most other creatures. The Kethver don't need teachers right now, Sullivan continued. They don't need philosophers or diplomats. They need someone who can stop the monsters that are killing their children. They need predators. The room fell silent as everyone considered Sullivan's words. Lena looked at the frozen image on her screen. The Kethver parent holding two terrified children while their world burned around them. How long would it take to get there? Asked Admiral King. With our fastest ships and newest jump drives, about 2 weeks, Sullivan replied. We could have a full battle group there in less than a month. And what exactly would we do when we arrived? Asked Dr. Phillips. Sullivan's expression became cold and determined. We would do what humans do best, sir. We would end the threat. Alina realized that the peaceful Kethver had no idea what they had started. Their desperate plea for help had reached the one species in the galaxy that was perfectly designed to answer their call. Not with wisdom or advanced science, but with something far more direct. Over the next few hours, Alina watched as humanity's war machine began to move. Ships that had been patrolling the outer colonies received new orders. Marines who had been training for combat against human enemies were briefed on fighting alien monsters. Weapons that had never been used in real combat were loaded onto transport ships. The Kethver had asked for elder guidance. Instead, they were about to learn what it meant when Deathworlders answered the call. Commander Sullivan approached Alina. As she prepared to leave the communications center, Dr. Martinez, we're going to need someone who understands their language and culture. Someone who can help us communicate with them when we arrive. Alina looked at him with surprise. You want me to come with you? The Kethver sent that message hoping for wise aliens who could help them, Sullivan said. Maybe they'll get their wish after all, just not in the way they expected. Alina thought about the gentle creatures in the message, trying to protect their children from monsters they couldn't fight. Then she thought about what humans could do to those monsters. When do we leave? She asked. Sullivan smiled grimly. 12 hours, and Dr. Martinez, you might want to prepare yourself. When we get there, those aliens are going to learn that sometimes the help you need isn't what you expected. Sometimes it's exactly what the situation demands. 2 weeks after receiving the distress signal, Commander Jake Sullivan's fleet dropped out of hyperspace at the edge of the Harmony system. What they saw made even the experienced soldiers pause in shock. 3 massive black ships hung in orbit around the blue and green world below. Each ship was the size of a small moon, covered in spikes and weapon ports that glowed with evil red light. Smaller ships swarmed around them like angry insects, diving down toward the planet's surface before returning with what looked like cargo containers. God, whispered Dr. Elena Martinez from her position on the bridge. Those ships are enormous. Doesn't win battles, Sullivan replied calmly. Bobby, what are our sensors telling us about those vessels? Chief Engineer Bobby Chen worked at his station, running scans on the alien ships. The hulls are thick, but they appear to be biological in nature, sir. Okay, almost like they grew these. Ships, instead of building them, the weapons seem to be energy-based. Probably plasma cannons. And the planet. Chun's face grew dark as he read the data. At multiple impact sites across all continents. Cities burning. I'm reading massive heat signatures from what used to be population centers. Sir, if there are any survivors down there? There aren't many. Sullivan nodded grimly. Open a channel to the lead Zephyrian ship. Let's see if we can talk to them. The main screen flickered and then showed a creature that made several crew members step backward. The Zephyrian had 4 arms, each ending in razor-sharp claws. Its head was insect-like, with compound eyes that glowed yellow. Mandibles clicked constantly as it spoke. "Unknown vessels," the creature hissed. "You enter Zephyrian feeding grounds. Leave now, or become food like the soft meat creatures below." "This is Commander Sullivan of the Human Defense Force," Jake replied. "We received a distress call from the inhabitants of this world. We're here to provide assistance." The Zephyrian made a sound that might have been laughter. "More soft meat. Comes to feed the hive." "How convenient. Your ships look tasty. We'll crack them open and feast on what is inside." Alina watched in horror as weapon ports began opening along the sides of all 3 massive ships. "Commander, they're powering up weapons. I don't think they want to negotiate." "Apparently not," Sullivan said calmly. Then he pressed a button on his command chair. "All ships, this is Sullivan. Weapons free.
Ow.
Show them what happens when you threaten humans." The space battle that followed would later be studied in military academies across human space. The Zephyrians had evolved to fight creatures like the gentle Kethra beings, who used energy shields and plasma weapons, who fought in organized formations and followed predictable patterns. Humans had evolved to fight other humans. The first Zephyrian plasma blast hit the human flagship shields and was absorbed harmlessly. The Zephyrians had designed their weapons to overwhelm energy barriers through sustained fire. But human shields were built to deflect kinetic impacts, asteroids, missiles, and railgun slugs moving at incredible speeds. Sullivan's response was swift and brutal. "Bobby, target their weapon ports with kinetic rounds. Amy, take your squadron and hit their engines." Lieutenant Amy Foster, leading a group of small human fighters, dove toward the nearest Zephyrian ship, with the massive vessel. Tried to track her ships with its energy weapons, but the human fighters moved in ways the Zephyrians had never seen before. They spun and twisted through space like birds avoiding a predator, using evasive maneuvers that made targeting impossible. "These humans fight like no prey species we have encountered," the Zephyrian commander transmitted to its fleet. "Do not flee. They attack like hunters." Amy's fighters reached the first ship's engine section and unleashed their missiles. The Zephyrians had armor designed to resist energy weapons and the natural weapons of other creatures. They had never faced explosives designed to punch through the hull of a human warship. The first ship's engines exploded in a chain reaction that sent the massive vessel spinning out of control. Emergency lights flickered along its hull as atmosphere vented from dozens of breaches. "Impossible," hissed the Zephyrian commander. "No soft meat species possesses such weapons." On the planet's surface, the few surviving Kethfer watched the battle through broken telescopes and damaged sensors. In hidden bunkers deep underground, they witnessed something they had never imagined possible. Someone was fighting back against the monsters Daunt, Klotz, and one of the youngest Kethfer, and one of the few who had tried to fight the invaders, pressed his face to a periscope viewer. "Elder Veltar, come quickly. Sky's full of fire, but it's not falling on us anymore." Ambassador Veltar, his once beautiful robes torn and stained with ash, joined the young Kethfer at the viewer. What he saw defied everything he thought he knew about the universe. Small ships were dancing between the massive Zephyrian vessels, moving with a grace and purpose that seemed impossible. Every few seconds, bright flashes would appear as weapons fired, but these weren't the chaotic energy blasts the Zephyrians used. These were precise, controlled strikes that hit exactly where they were aimed. "Who are they?" Kaladin whispered. "The message we sent was answered." "I don't know," Veltar replied. "But whoever they are, they're not like the wise elder races we hoped for." Above them, the second Zephyrian ship was learning the difference between fighting herbivores and fighting apex predators. Commander Sullivan had divided his fleet into 3 groups, each attacking from a different angle. Though the Zephyrians used 2 simple frontal assaults, couldn't adapt to the complex tactical maneuvers. "Sir," reported Chen from his engineering station, "I'm analyzing their ship designs. These things are built for intimidation and overwhelming firepower, not for tactical combat. They've probably never faced an enemy that fought back effectively." "That's about to change," Sullivan replied. "All ships execute pattern Delta, Let's show them what humans learned, fighting each other for 10,000 years. The human ships suddenly scattered in all directions, then curved back toward their targets in precise arcs. Each ship timed its approach perfectly, hitting the Zephyrian vessels from multiple angles simultaneously. The aliens' energy weapons couldn't track targets moving in such coordinated but unpredictable patterns. On the largest Zephyrian ship, the commander was beginning to understand what it faced. These weren't prey animals driven by fear and desperation. These were predators executing a hunt, signaled the home fleet. It ordered one of its subordinates. Tell them we have found something new. These humans are not like the soft meat species. They are ... dangerous. The message was interrupted as a human missile punched through the ship's primary hull and exploded deep inside. The biological systems that controlled the vessel's functions began shutting down as critical organs were. Destro Y dead. Dr. Elena Martinez watched from the human flagship as the tide of battle turned completely. The third Zephyrian ship was trying to retreat, but human fighters were already disabling its jump drives. Within minutes, all three massive vessels were either destroyed or crippled. Commander, she said quietly, should we try to establish communication with the survivors on the planet? Sullivan nodded and opened a channel using the translation protocols Elena had developed. Attention, Kethver forces. This is Commander Sullivan of the Human Defense Force. We received your distress call. The immediate threat has been neutralized. The response came from deep underground, filled with wonder and confusion. You came? Your ships fight like nothing we have ever seen. Elena took over the communication. We are humans from a world called Earth. We heard your message asking for help from elder races. There was a long pause before Veltar's voice came through. The speakers. Elder races. But your warriors fight with such ... violence. Such purpose. Are you the wise beings we hoped would guide us to peace? Sullivan and Elena exchanged glances. How could they explain to these gentle creatures that their desperate message had reached the most successful predator species in known space? We're not exactly what you were expecting, Elena said carefully, but we're here to help. The creatures attacking your world won't trouble you anymore. Down in the bunker, Veltar stared at the communication device with growing realization. The Kethver had sent their message hoping to find ancient, wise races who could teach them peaceful solutions to their problems. Instead, their call for help had been answered by beings who solve problems by destroying them completely as rescue. Ships began descending from orbit. Veltar wondered if perhaps that was exactly what his people had needed after all. Colonel Lisa Harper stood in the transport ship's cargo bay, watching her Marines prepare for ground operations. Each soldier checked their weapons and equipment with the practiced movements of professionals who had trained for combat their entire lives. But this mission was different from anything they had faced before. Listen up, Harper called out to her troops. We're going down to help alien civilians who have never seen real warfare. These people are more like frightened deer than soldiers. They've been hiding underground for months while bug monsters hunted them. Our job is to clear out any remaining Zephyrian ground forces and secure the civilian populations. Sergeant Tim Miller raised his hand. Colonel, what do we know about fighting these Zephyrians on the ground? Intelligence says they're about 8 feet tall, 4 arms, natural armor plating, and they prefer close combat with claws and teeth. They hunt in packs and they're used to their prey running away. Harper smiled grimly. They've never faced prey that shoots back. Meanwhile, in orbit aboard the flagship, Dr. Tony Rodriguez was studying captured Zephyrian communications. As the fleet's military psychologist, his job was to understand how the enemy thought and find weaknesses they could exploit. Commander? Sullivan, he called out. I think I've found something important. The Zephyrians aren't just individuals working together. They're actually part of a collective mind system. Each ship, each group, they all report back to a central intelligence. Sullivan joined Rodriguez at his workstation. What does that mean for us? It means they're very good at coordinating large-scale attacks, but they're terrible at adapting to unexpected situations. Their whole system is based on the central mind making decisions and passing them down. When something happens that doesn't fit their expectations, they have to wait for new orders. And humans? Rodriguez grinned. Humans train every soldier to think independently. Every Marine down there with Colonel Harper can make tactical decisions on their own. We don't need to wait for orders from above. On the planet's surface, Harper's Marines were discovering just how different this war was from anything they had trained for. The Kethver cities were built like gardens, with living trees forming the walls of buildings and flowers growing along every pathway. It was beautiful, but it had offered no protection against the Zephyrian attacks. "This is like fighting in a park," muttered Private Sarah Johnson as she moved through the ruins of what had once been a school. These people never built anything with defense in mind. The first group of Kethver civilians they found were hiding in a basement beneath a library. When Harper's team broke through the blocked entrance, the aliens cowered in terror, thinking the armored humans were another type of monster. Ambassador Veltar was among the refugees. When he saw the human soldiers, his large, deer-like eyes went wide with fear and confusion. "Please," he said in broken English, "we are not fighters. We have no weapons to give you." Harper removed her helmet, showing her human face. "We're not here to take anything from you. We're here to help. The ships in orbit are gone, but there might still be Zephyrian ground forces in the city. We need to get you somewhere safe." Veltar stared at Harper in amazement. You are the ones who answered our call. But you look so small. How did you defeat the great hive ships?" Before Harper could answer, her radio crackled with reports from other units. "Colonel, this is Team Bravo. We've found a group of Zephyrians holding Kethver prisoners about 6 blocks north of your position. Maybe 30 bugs, heavily armed." "Copy that, Bravo. Wait for backup before engaging." But Team Bravo's leader, Lieutenant Danny Foster, was already studying the situation through his scope. The Zephyrians had captured a group of young Kethver and were forcing them to work, probably preparing to take them back to the hive ships as food. "Negative, Colonel. These bugs are about to execute some civilians. We're going in." Harper cursed under her breath. Foster was a good soldier, but he had a tendency to act first and ask permission later. All teams converge on Bravo's position. We have contact. The battle that followed showed the Zephyrians exactly what they were really facing. The bug creatures had evolved to hunt frightened herbivores who ran in straight lines. They had never fought an enemy that used cover, flanking maneuvers, and coordinated fire. Foster's team approached the Zephyrian position from 3 different directions. The aliens were so focused on guarding their prisoners that they didn't notice the humans moving through the ruined buildings around them. The attack began with a single sniper shot that took down the largest Zephyrian. Before the others could react, human soldiers appeared from behind cover all around them, firing weapons that the aliens had never encountered before. Zephyrian natural armor was designed to stop claws and teeth. Couldn't stop bullets designed to penetrate human military armor. The creatures that had seemed so terrifying to the peaceful Kethver fell within seconds when faced with coordinated human tactics. Young Kaladin, who had been captured while trying to find food for his family, watched in amazement as the monsters that had haunted his nightmares were destroyed by creatures half their size. The humans moved like dancers, each one covering the others, never exposing themselves unnecessarily. "How?" he whispered to one of the human soldiers who was cutting his bonds. "They were so big, so strong." The soldier, Private Johnson, smiled at him kindly. "Size doesn't matter much when you know how to fight, smart kid." These bugs spent so long hunting creatures that couldn't fight back that they forgot what real predators look like. Back in orbit, Dr. Rodriguez was intercepting increasingly frantic communications from the Zephyrian hive mind. Thetral intelligence was trying to understand what was happening to its ground forces. "Unknown species exhibits impossible tactical coordination," one message read. "Individual units operate independently but with unified purpose. It contradicts all known prey behavior patterns." Another transmission was even more confused. "Ground forces report enemy uses projectile weapons of unknown type. Weapons penetrate natural armor as if it were soft tissue. Request immediate evolutionary adaptation guidance." Rodriguez laughed as he translated the messages for Commander Sullivan. "They're asking their hive mind how to evolve better armor in the middle of a battle. They literally don't understand that some species develop technology instead of just growing thicker skin. On the surface, Colonel Harper was learning about the Kethver Society as her teams secured more areas of the city. The aliens had never developed military technology because they had never needed it. Their entire civilization was built around art, science, and philosophy. "We study the movements of stars," Veltar explained as they walked through a rescued neighborhood. "We write music that captures the sound of wind through crystal formations, create sculptures from living wood that grow more beautiful over time. We never imagined that creatures existed who solve problems through violence." Harper looked around at the beautiful city with its organic architecture and wondered how beings this gentle had survived long enough to develop space travel. "How did your species ever deal with predators on your home world?" "Predators?" Veltar looked confused. "Our world has no predators. All creatures live in harmony. Plants provide food for herbivores. Herbivores provide fertilizer for plants. We thought all intelligent species would develop this way." Now Harper understood why the Kethver had been so helpless against the Zephyrians. It came from a world where the concept of one species hunting another was completely foreign. They had never needed to learn how to fight because nothing on their planet had ever tried to fight them. "That explains why your distress message asked for wise guidance instead of military help," Harper said. "You thought all advanced species would be peaceful like you?" "Yes," Veltar replied sadly. "We believed that intelligence and wisdom naturally led to peace. We thought the Zephyrians were an aberration, and that surely other spacefaring races would help us find a peaceful solution." Harper stopped walking and looked directly at the alien diplomat. "Veltar, I need you to understand something. Humans aren't peaceful. Our world is dangerous, and we became the dominant species by learning to fight better than anything else. We've spent thousands of years perfecting the art of war." Veltar's large eyes filled with something that might have been fear. "Then why did you come to help us? If you are warriors like the Zephyrians, why didn't you simply take our world for yourselves?" Harper thought about how to answer that question in a way the gentle alien could understand. "Because we learned something that Zephyrians never did. We learned that strength should be used to protect those who can't protect themselves. The strong have a responsibility to defend the weak." As if to prove her point, her radio crackled with another report. "Colonel, this is Team Alpha. We found the main Zephyrian ground base. Looks like they were processing captured Kethver for transport off-world. There are hundreds of civilians in holding pens." Harper's expression hardened. "All teams form up on Alpha's position. We're going to show these bugs what happens when predators hunt children." Veltar watched the human colonel's face change as she received the report about captured civilians. In that moment, he began to understand that perhaps the universe had sent them exactly the right kind of help after all. Captain Nina Bell gripped the controls of her stealth fighter as she approached the largest Zephyrian command ship. The massive vessel hung dead in space, its biological hull cracked and bleeding atmosphere from the earlier battle. But sensors showed it was still alive, still dangerous. "This is Ghost Leader to all units," Nina spoke into her radio. "Remember, this isn't just a ship. Intelligence says it's actually a living creature the size of a small moon. Somewhere inside that thing is the brain that's been coordinating the ground forces." Her wingman, Lieutenant Rick Adams, checked his weapons display. "Captain, are we really going to fly inside that thing?" "That's the plan," Nina replied calmly. "Engineer Johnson has been working with the Kethver scientists. They think they found a way to disrupt the creature's nervous system, but someone has to get close. Enough to plant the device." Down on the planet's surface, Engineer Pete Johnson was indeed working with the surviving Kethver scientists in their underground laboratory. The alien scientists were amazed by human technology, but what impressed them more was how quickly humans could adapt and improvise. "Your people think very differently than ours," said Dr. Miravel, a Kethver scientist whose graceful movements reminded Pete of a ballet dancer. "When we encounter a problem, we study it carefully, consider all possibilities, and develop an elegant solution. You seem to ... make things work by force of will." Pete laughed as he connected human power cells to a Kethver harmonic resonator. "Yeah, we're not very elegant, But sometimes you don't have time to find the perfect solution. Sometimes you just need something that works right now. The device they were building was a perfect example of human and Kethver cooperation. The aliens had discovered that the Zephyrian hive creatures were vulnerable to specific sound frequencies. The humans had the power sources and delivery systems to turn that discovery into a weapon. "Will it really work?" asked Mirabelle nervously. "One way to find out," Pete replied, making final adjustments to the improvised weapon. "But that's how humans operate. We try things, see what happens, and adapt when they don't work perfectly." Meanwhile, in a quiet corner of the rescued city, Elder Morthok sat with several human soldiers around a small fire. The ancient Kethver philosopher was trying to understand these strange creatures who had saved his people. "I have studied the behavior of intelligent species for 300 years, Morthok said to Sergeant Miller. "But I cannot understand. Your people, you fight with such violence, yet you risk your lives to save strangers. You destroy your enemies completely, yet you treat our children with gentleness." Miller looked into the fire, thinking about how to explain human nature to someone who had never experienced conflict. "Elder, on our world, everything is trying to kill everything else. The weather, the animals, the plants, even the ground sometimes. We learn to survive by becoming the most dangerous thing on the planet." "But that should have made you monsters like the Zephyrians," Morthok replied. "How did you avoid becoming like them?" "Because we also learned to work together," said Private Johnson, who was sharing her ration pack with a young Kethver child. "The humans who survived weren't just the strongest or the most violent. They were the ones who could cooperate, who could sacrifice for the group, who could protect those who couldn't protect themselves." Morthok watched as Johnson gently helped the Kethver child eat the unfamiliar human food. "So your violence comes from love?" "In a way, yeah," Miller replied. "We fight so hard because we care so much. The angrier we get at someone hurting innocent people, the more dangerous we become to the ones doing the hurting." Above them in space, Captain Bell was about to demonstrate exactly what Miller meant. Her stealth fighter had reached the damaged command ship, and she was preparing to fly inside, through one of the hull breaches. "Ghost Leader, this is command," came Commander Sullivan's voice through her radio. "Are you sure about this? We could just blow the ship apart from outside." "Negative, sir," Nina replied. "There are still human prisoners on board, captured from the merchant ship that was in system when the attack began. I'm not leaving our people behind." She guided her fighter through the jagged opening in the creature's hull. Inside, the ship was like flying through the bloodstream of some enormous animal. Organic corridors pulsed with bioluminescent light, and the walls seemed to breathe around her. "This is definitely the creepiest thing I've ever done," she muttered. To herself, her sensors detected the human life signs deeper in the ship, but they also showed something else. Massive bioelectrical activity coming from what had to be the creature's brain center. The Zephyrian hive mind wasn't just controlling this ship, it was the ship. As Nina flew deeper into the living vessel, she began receiving transmissions from the creature itself. The voice that came through her radio was a mixture of rage and confusion. "Human vessel," the hive mind spoke directly to her. "You invade the sacred body of the Queen Mother. This is impossible. No prey species possesses such courage." "Not prey," Nina replied calmly. "I'm a predator, just like you. The difference is I hunt to protect, you hunt to destroy." "Impossible," the voice hissed. "Predators do not sacrifice themselves for prey creatures. Predators do not risk their lives for the weak." Nina found the prison section where the human merchant crew was being held. As she began cutting through the organic barriers with her ship's laser, she continued talking to the alien intelligence. "That's where you're wrong. The strongest predators are the ones who build packs, who work together, who protect their own. You turned your whole species into a hive mind, but you made them all exactly the same. We kept our individuality, and that makes us stronger." The rescued merchant captain, a tough woman named Carol Price, climbed into Nina's fighter with tears of relief in her eyes. "I thought we were going to die in there. How did you find us?" "We never leave our people behind," Nina said simply, then spoke into her radio. "Ghost Leader to all units. Prisoners recovered. beginning final approach to target. She flew her overloaded fighter toward the creature's brain center, where Pete Johnson's improvised weapon waited to be deployed. But the hive mind wasn't finished. Talking, your species confuses us. Humans. You fight like apex predators, but you protect like herd animals. You destroy like forces of nature, but you create like gardeners. What are you? Nina thought about all the human history she had learned in school. Wars that lasted generations, but also great works of art and science. Humans who could level mountains, but who would also die to save a single child. Or what happens when a species learns that survival isn't enough, she said finally. We learned that the point of being strong is to make sure others can be gentle. She reached the brain center and deployed Johnson's device. The harmonic resonator began broadcasting the frequencies that the Kethver scientist had discovered would disrupt the creature's nervous system. The effect was immediate. The massive ship began convulsing as its brain lost control of its body. Functions. Throughout the Zephyrian fleet, smaller ships that had been coordinated by the hive mind suddenly became confused and disorganized. On the planet below, Elder Morthok felt the change immediately. The remaining ground forces, he said to Sergeant Miller, they've stopped moving in formation. They're just wandering around like lost insects. Miller smiled grimly. That's what happens when you build your whole strategy around a single point of failure. Humans learned a long time ago not to put all our eggs in one basket. As Nina's fighter escaped the dying command ship, she received a final transmission from the fading hive mind. The voice was weaker now, confused and afraid. We do not understand, it whispered. We conquered 17 star systems. We devoured billions of creatures. How were we defeated by such a small force? Because you never learned the difference between being strong and being right, Nina replied. You became strong to take what you wanted. We became strong to protect what we love. The command ship finally died, its massive form going dark as the brain that had controlled it stopped functioning. Across the system, the remaining Zephyrian forces began surrendering or fleeing. Their coordination completely broken down on the planet. Veltar watched the alien ships retreat and turned to Colonel Harper with wonder in his large eyes. We called for wisdom and guidance, he said slowly. Instead, we received guardians who taught us that sometimes wisdom means knowing when to fight. Harper nodded, watching her soldiers help Kethver civilians rebuild their damaged city. Sometimes, the best way to preserve peace is to be ready for war. 3 months after the battle, Admiral Kate Morrison stood on the bridge of her flagship, watching construction crews build the first joint human Kethver space station. The massive structure hung in orbit between Earth's military base and the Kethver homeworld, a symbol of the alliance that had grown from a desperate cry for help. Admiral reported her communications officer, "We're receiving another distress signal. This one is coming from the Theta sector, about 40 light years." From here, Morrison smiled as she read the translation. It was another peaceful species asking for help against raiders. Word was spreading across the galaxy that there were beings who would answer such calls. "Prep the Third Fleet for deployment," she ordered, "and send a message to the Kethver Council. Ask if they want to send some of their new peacekeeping ships." With us, down on the planet's surface, Dr. Marcus Webb was finishing his report on first contact protocols. As the fleet's chief sent-up psychologist, it spent months studying how different species could work together, despite their vastly different natures. His office was in the rebuilt Kethver capital, in a building that perfectly showed how the two species had learned from each other. The structure was grown from living wood in the Kethver style, but it included human-designed defensive features and communication systems. Ambassador Veltar entered the office, moving with the graceful steps that all Kethver shared. In the months since the battle, he had become the main link between human and Kethver governments. Dr. Webb Veltar said, settling into a chair designed for his alien body. "I've been thinking about what we learned from this experience. When we sent our distress call, we were hoping to find wise elders who could teach us peaceful solutions. Webb looked up from his computer, and instead you found us." "Yes, and at first I was terrified. Your people solved our problem through violence, through destruction of our enemies. Everything my species believes tells us that this should make you monsters. But, Webb prompted Veltar S. Large eyes looked out the window toward the construction site where humans and Kethfer were working side by side. But you are not monsters. You are gardeners who happen to be very good at removing weeds. Webb laughed. At the comparison, I like that. Mind if I use it in my report? Of course, Dr. Webb, I have a question that has been troubling me. How did your species learn to control its violent nature? How did you become protectors instead of conquerors? Webb leaned back in his chair, thinking about human history. We made a lot of mistakes first. For thousands of years, we used our strength to fight each other. We had wars that killed millions of people. We conquered and enslaved and destroyed. Then, how did you change? We learned that cooperation was more powerful than domination. We discovered that protecting others made us stronger than just protecting ourselves. It took us a long time to figure that out, and we still aren't perfect at it. Meanwhile, in the space station's engineering section, Pete Johnson was training a group of young Kethfer in human technology. The gentle aliens were fascinated by how humans built things, but they were also contributing their own knowledge to create new innovations. The key to human engineering, Pete explained to his eager students, is that we assume everything will break eventually, so we build things that can be fixed quickly, or that have backup systems, or that fail safely. One of his students, a young Kethfer named Cyrovan, raised her hand. But we build things to last forever. Our cities have stood for thousands of years without needing repair. That works great when you live on a peaceful world, Pete replied. But when someone is shooting at your city, you need to be able to rebuild it fast. Different environments require different solutions. The collaboration between the two species was producing remarkable results. Kethfer biotechnology combined with human engineering was creating tools that neither species could have developed alone. Medical devices that could heal wounds in minutes, communication systems that could translate any language instantly, defensive systems that could protect entire planets without harming the life forms on them. But the most important development was happening in the diplomatic sector. News of the human response to the Kethfer distress call was spreading throughout the galaxy. Other species were beginning to reach out. Admiral Morrison, her aide, reported, "We've now received contact attempts from 12 different species. Most of them are asking for help with various threats, but some are just curious about humans." Morrison studied the reports. Some of the species were like the Kethfer, peaceful beings who had never learned to fight. Others were more like humans, having evolved on dangerous worlds but choosing to use their strength for exploration rather than conquest. "Any sign of more species like the Zephyrians?" she asked. 3 confirmed hostile species, but they all seem to be avoiding human-protected space. Word is getting around that attacking our allies is a bad idea. In the rebuilt Kethfer city, young Kaladin was learning to be a soldier. It had been his choice. After seeing his family threatened, he wanted to learn how to protect others. But human military training was very different from what he had expected. "Fighting isn't about being angry," explained Sergeant Miller during a training exercise. "Anger makes you stupid. Good soldiers fight with their brains, not their emotions." Kaladin practiced with a human-designed weapon that had been modified for Kethfer physiology. "But how do you stay calm when someone is trying to hurt innocent people?" "You focus on stopping them," Miller replied. "Your job isn't to punish the bad guys. Your job is to protect the good guys. Everything else is just ego." The young Kethfer was part of a new generation that would grow up knowing both peace and the ability to defend it. They would combine their species' natural wisdom with human tactical knowledge. It's creating something new in the galaxy. Elder Morthok watched the training from a distance, still amazed by how much his people had changed. "We used to believe that violence was always wrong," he said to Dr. Webb, who had joined him to observe the exercises. "And now?" Webb asked. "Now we understand that refusing to fight evil is not wisdom, it is just another form of selfishness. Sometimes, the most peaceful thing you can do is to be very good at war." Back in space, Admiral Morrison was receiving a transmission that would change everything. It came from the far edge of the galaxy, from a species that called themselves the Galactic Council. "Unknown species called humans," the message began. "We have observed your recent actions in the Harmony sector. Your response to the Kethfer distress call has been noted by the elder races of this galaxy." Morrison felt a chill. These were the beings the Kethver had originally hoped to contact, the wise, ancient species that had moved beyond war. Message continued. We had written off the younger species in that region as lost to the Zephyrian expansion. We did not intervene because we believed that violence could only create more violence. We were wrong. You have shown us something we had forgotten. Sometimes the strong must act to protect the weak, even if that action requires force. We request a meeting to discuss your species joining the Galactic Council. Morrison smiled as she read the rest of the message. The peaceful elder races had been watching the galaxy's younger species struggle and die, believing that intervention would only make things worse.
The human response to the Kethver crisis had shown them a different way.
Admiral, her communications officer reported. We're also receiving a transmission from Zephyrian space. It's unusual. The message was from the surviving Zephyrian fleets. It was brief. We withdraw from all territories bordering human-protected space. We do not wish further contact with the apex predators. Morrison nodded with satisfaction. The galaxy was learning that there were consequences for attacking peaceful species. The Zephyrians would find easier targets elsewhere, or perhaps they would learn to change their ways entirely. Ambassador Veltar joined Morrison on the bridge for the next phase of their mission. The peaceful alien had become quite skilled at diplomacy, and his gentle nature helped other species feel comfortable approaching the humans. Admiral, he said, I've been thinking about our first meeting. You told me that sometimes the help you need isn't what you expected, but exactly what the situation demands. I understand now that our distress called it exactly what it was supposed to do. We asked the universe for help, and the universe sent us guardians. We just didn't expect our guardians to be warriors. Morrison looked out at the stars, knowing that somewhere in the darkness other species were sending out their own calls for help, and now they would be answered not by distant philosophers, but by beings who understood that peace was worth fighting for. The galaxy is changing. Veltar, she said, and maybe that's exactly what it needed.